The Extraordinary Voyage of Kamome. A Tsunami Boat Comes Home. There is a place called Rikuzentakata in Japan, near the beautiful Pacific Ocean. The people love their high mountains, beaches, and tall pine trees. There is a place called Crescent City in America on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. The people love their beautiful beaches, mountains, and giant redwood trees. Who lives in Rikuzentakata? There are grandparents, mothers, fathers, teenagers, and young children. The grown-ups have many different jobs. Some are teachers, police officers, firefighters, and chefs. Some work on boats and fish, and others have jobs that help their city. Families live in Crescent City, too. There are small children, and teenagers, and mothers, and fathers, and grandparents. People work as fishermen, teachers, chefs, police officers, firefighters, and at many other jobs. There is a school in Rikuzentakata called Takata High School. Here, Japanese teenagers know that America is very far away and that the people speak a different language and eat different foods. The students had never heard of Crescent City. There is a school in Crescent City called Dengler High School. American teenagers there know that Japan is on the other side of the ocean and that the people speak another language and eat different food. They had never heard of Rikuzentakata and couldn't imagine going to such a faraway place. Takata High School had a little boat to help students learn about the ocean and how to fish. It was named Kamome, the Japanese word for seagull. They painted Takata High School on the side so that everyone would know it was their boat. The characters looked like this. Kamome was tied up on shore with all the other boats when one day a terrible thing happened. There was a very big earthquake. The ground shook and shook and shook. The earthquake caused big waves called a tsunami. The tsunami swept over the city of Rikuzentakata and washed many buildings, cars, and boats into the ocean. The people were frightened and angry and sad. The tsunami traveled all the way across the Pacific Ocean to America. By the time it reached Crescent City, it was much smaller, but it was still big enough to sweep over the harbor in Crescent City and sink many boats. Kamome and the other boats were washed out into the ocean by the big tsunami waves. Kamome was carried far, far off the coast. The people thought the little boat and all the other things caught in the tsunami were lost forever. The big tsunami waves flipped Kamome upside down. The only part of the little boat above the water was her blue bottom. The winds in the ocean slowly pushed Kamome away from Japan and towards America. Kamome was alone in the big Pacific Ocean. Sometimes Kamome was caught in big storms that tossed the little boat back and forth, up and down. Great waves splashed completely over her, but the little boat was very strong and kept on floating. The little boat's only companions were seabirds, whales, dolphins, fish, and other sea creatures. Sea animals called barnacles stuck to every part of Kamome that was beneath the water. Their long necks floated beneath the little boat. Kamome must have looked very strange to the dolphins and other creatures that swam beneath her. The barnacles grew and grew until they were more than a foot long, dangling beneath the boat like big noodles. Months and months went by. The new year came and went and came again. It was hard for the people in Rikuzentakata to enjoy New Year's celebrations like making mochi. Most of their beautiful town was gone, and they were reminded of the terrible tsunami every day. In America, many people had forgotten about the tsunami and what had happened in Japan. One day, more than 2 years after the tsunami, a strange little boat washed ashore near Crescent City. The Americans had never seen a boat like this before. The long barnacles completely covered the sides. Many people came to look at the boat. They scraped some of the barnacles off the boat and saw the Japanese writing. They wondered what it said. A Japanese person read the characters which said, Takata High School. The people in Crescent City learned that Takata High School was in Rikuzentakata, Japan, and that the boat had been lost in the tsunami. The students from Del Norte High School saw the boat too. They were amazed that the little boat hadn't sunk. They liked the name Kamome because there were a lot of seagulls in Crescent City. No one knew what to do with the little boat. For weeks and weeks, the little boat sat alone. One day, the Del Norte High School students said, maybe we could send this boat back to the people who lost it. The students cleaned the boat. They talked to their teachers about how to send the boat home. The teachers talked to officials in America and Japan. Many people wanted to help return the little boat. Finally, Kamome was put on a ship to return to Japan. It had taken the little boat 2 years to travel to America. The big ship took less than a week to take Kamome back to Japan. Takata High School students came out to see the little boat when she arrived in Rikuzentakata. It made the students smile to see their boat again. Takata High School students and teachers were very thankful that the American students had worked so hard to send their boat back. They invited the American students to visit them in Japan. The American teenagers were a little scared to go to Japan. They had never traveled so far away before. They didn't speak Japanese and wondered what it would be like to eat Japanese food and if the Japanese students would like them. They flew in an airplane across the Pacific Ocean and took a bullet train to Rikuzentakata. They visited Takata High School and met the Japanese teenagers. The American students were happy to see Kamome in Japan. The American students learned to cook Japanese food and discovered it tasted good. They learned to sing a folk song and write their names in Japanese characters. Everyone smiled and laughed. The people in Rikuzentakata were happy to see the students having fun. When it was time for the American students to leave, they asked their new friends to visit them in Crescent City. The next year, students from Takata High School got on an airplane and flew across the Pacific Ocean to America. They visited Crescent City and the students from Del Norte High School. The Japanese students had never been to America. They studied English in school, but were a little scared about talking to the Del Norte High School students and eating American food. They wondered if the American students would like them. The Takata High School students saw the big redwood trees. They visited the spot where Kamome had washed ashore. The Japanese students and the American students laughed together. The Japanese students learned to sing an American song and write their names in English. They went to a restaurant and ate American food. Seeing the American and Japanese students laughing together made the people in Crescent City happy. What an amazing little boat! She survived the tsunami, traveled all the way across the ocean, and then came back to Japan. Everywhere Kamome went, she made people happy. The students from Takata High School and Del Norte High School made a pledge to each other. Let's be friends forever.